And our top focus in WION at this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Bejamin Netanyahu underwent a surgery to implant a cardiac pacemaker and is feeling great. This is according to his doctors. This comes as Parliament prepares to vote on a bill on Monday that would curtail the Supreme Court's powers. Take a listen.
I feel great, but I must listen to my doctors. Up until the past few minutes, I have been talking with my colleagues, making the necessary arrangements. I hope that an agreement will be reached. But in any case, the doctor said that I will be free tomorrow afternoon, discharged from the hospital, and will be able to go to the Knesset to vote. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Israel's parliament will be meeting in a few hours from now. The meeting called on Sunday is crucial, which is the very first of the bill of the contested judicial reforms will be presented today, after which debate and discussion over the bill will begin, before a final vote on Monday, that is. Now, the Netanyahu-led government is set to win the vote as it sits in a comfortable majority in the single-chamber Knesset. And this is how people are reacting to the development. A sea of Israeli flags converged in Jerusalem on Saturday evening. Thousands of demonstrators entered their last leg of a 4-day march from Tel Aviv to Israel's parliament in Jerusalem. Thousands of demonstrators marched for over 70 kilometers. The crowd will now camp there till Monday's vote. Meanwhile, over 100 former Israeli security leaders, including retired army chiefs, police commissioners and heads of intelligence agencies, signed a letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu. The letter blames Netanyahu for compromising Israel's defense and urges to halt the legislation. Thousands of reservists who compose the backbone of Israel's armed forces have announced in recent days that they will not serve if the legislation passes. 7 straight months of the most sustained and intense demonstrations culminated in scenes like these. The planned judicial overhaul calls for sweeping changes. The changes are aimed at curbing the powers of the judiciary, from limiting the Supreme Court's ability to challenge parliamentary decisions to changing the way judges are selected in the country. While the government says that the overhaul is needed to reduce the powers of the unelected judges. Demonstrators say that the overhaul will push Israel towards autocracy. Monday's parliament vote will decide upon a measure that would prevent the Supreme Court from striking down government decisions for being unreasonable, that is. The proponents say that the current reasonability standard gives judges excessive powers over decision-making by the elected officials. But critics say that removing the standard, which is already invoked only in rare cases, would allow the government to pass arbitrary decisions, make improper appointments or firings, and even open the door to corruption in the country. For further details on this, we're now being joined by correspondent Jody Cohen, who's joining us live from Ranana. Hi, Jody. Now, what can you tell us about the Prime Minister's conditions as of now? Will his procedure mean a delay in voting, which is slated to take place tomorrow?
Hi, Rahisha. So Prime Minister Netanyahu, who remember is 73 years old, he has successfully had that pacemaker fitted. And the doctors say they're keeping him in today for observation, although he's continuing with his daily activities, reportedly. Now, this follows him fainting last week, which was attributed at the time to dehydration, and also in October when he had to stay overnight in hospital after feeling unwell on the Yom Kippur fast day. Now, Justice Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Yariv Levin stepped in. Remember, Netanyahu has not appointed a permanent acting prime minister, and ministers approved Levin as the interim prime minister through a phone vote. By Israeli law, there must be an acting prime minister if ever the prime minister is abroad or temporarily unable to perform duties such as through a medical procedure involving a loss of consciousness, as was the case in this procedure. Now, Sunday's cabinet meeting has been delayed, and also a meeting between the prime minister and the IDF chief, where they were going to be discussing the impact of army reservists, saying that they won't do reserve duty. Now, 10,000 reserve soldiers have pledged that they won't do their voluntary reserve duty. And also there's a petition by the Habit group representing 20,000 reservists who have pledged to continue with their reserve duty. Netanyahu is expected to be released on Sunday later today. They're debating the reasonableness bill in Parliament today, and the voting is expected to take place on Monday or Tuesday. So he's expected to be out of hospital in time for that vote.
Right, Jody, I was just coming to that what can we expect next from these demonstrations? They have been going on for about 6 months now, and the voting in Parliament, which will take place tomorrow, has hope for a compromise run out in Israel.
So we saw big protests again at the weekend with that march you talked about from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. On Saturday evening, protesters again blocked roads in Tel Aviv, and 4 were arrested for throwing rocks at the Ayalon highway. There was also a protest outside the Histadrut, trying to put pressure on the union to call for a general strike. On Sunday, the protests are expected to continue. This is the 29th week of the protests. A tent city was set up near Parliament. There was a human chain formed around Parliament early this morning. The Israel Medical Association has urged doctors to join in. There was a prayer for unity at the Western Wall. And tonight there's expected to be a big protest planned in Jerusalem against the reform, but also a protest in Tel Aviv for the reform. And that's a reminder that while we've seen big protests against the reform, there are many people who do support judicial reform or a compromise on this issue. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, before his procedure, released that video saying that he hoped to reach an agreement. And of course, he said to President Biden as well that he would seek consensus over the summer. So it is expected that this specific bill will pass. Obviously, you never know what's going to happen in Israeli politics. But then perhaps there'll be more talks over the summer while it's recessed.
Right, Judy, we'll of course have to wait and see how things pan out tomorrow at the Knesset. But thank you so much for joining us on WION and sharing your insights with us on this. Thanks very much.
Thank you.